a yeller? Would your children describe you as a yeller? Have you always been a yeller? Do you ever think to yourself, I didn't used to be a yeller, but now that I have kids, I'm a yeller? Well, you're not alone. I just read this article that said research shows that nearly 90% of parents with children ages 2 or older admitted to yelling or screaming or shouting at their kids. Yikes, right? Certainly guilty. I've definitely had my moments, and certainly not my Mom of the Year moments, but moments nonetheless. And before we go too far into this topic, it's important to acknowledge that there are times when yelling can be completely appropriate and necessary. And that's when your child's in imminent danger. Like they're about to touch a hot stove, they're about to cross the street without looking for oncoming traffic, or they're just generally engaging in behavior that could be harmful to themselves or someone else. Basically, when you need to protect them in the moment from imminent harm. This is the time for quick action and response. Now, when those situations occur and the danger is gone, it's important to go back to those situations and have a more rational, calm discussion about the situation and ways you can avoid it the next time. Teach them not to touch hot stoves and to always look both ways, but always create a learning opportunity from the whole situation. Okay, now back. But aside from these more urgent emergency situations, yelling usually is not an effective parenting strategy. So why do so many parents yell at their children? I mean, think back to when you were pregnant with your first child. Pretty sure when you daydreamed about raising your family, you didn't think, I'm going to be a yelling kind of parent. So why has it changed? Well, on the most basic level, reality kicked in. And the reality of parenting is that it's often very stressful. A colicky baby, an overtired toddler, a child that tests boundaries, a teen that has their own independent ideas, not to mention packed schedules, life stressors, all of this can create this like pressure cooker environment that's just literally ready to explode at any moment. So when we yell, it's a reaction to something we're feeling physiologically inside of us. It's frustration, it's anger, it's feeling overwhelmed. My family laughs at me because I have this ridiculous sensitive startle reflex, like ridiculous. And if someone comes up behind me, even around the house, I panic and scream. It's just like my natural response to the fear I immediately experience by being startled. I feel my heart race and instantly feel stressed. Then I scream. This all happens within fractions of a second. And that's when I realize what's happening and then the ridiculousness of the situation, then I'm able to calm down and we all have a good laugh. But this is a great example of how we respond, often irrationally, to what we're experiencing internally. But here's the problem. Yelling's not an effective way or tool to use when we're trying to create meaningful change in our children's behaviors. While yelling may produce instant obedience, research shows it doesn't really motivate children to change behaviors long-term and actually negatively impacts relationships between parents and children. Think about when someone is yelled at you. How did it make you feel? Scared? Belittled? Anxious? Intimidated? Insecure? Did you change your behavior? Maybe. If you did, I predict you changed it out of fear and not wanting to be yelled at again, more so than having this huge change of heart and seeing the error of your ways. And some of the parents I work with say, well, why does it matter? The behavior changed, so the end result was the same, right? Wrong. You have to look at the other side of the equation, the relationship side. Think about that person that yelled at you. Is that someone you feel deeply connected to? Someone you could be vulnerable with, share your heart with, confide in? Probably not. Is this the relationship you want with your children? I'm guessing no. I hope no. I'm guessing none of what was part of those daydreams you had raising your family included any of what I just described. The reality is, kids thrive in a relationship and an environment built on trust and love and respect and compassion. Kids obey in relationships in an environment that's built on fear, intimidation, condemnation, and hostility. So, how do we shift from yelling at our children when things go sideways to approaching them with love and respect and compassion? So, let's take a look at 5 ways. First of all, identify your triggers. For me, one of them is apparently getting startled. Another is when I feel stressed or overwhelmed. Try to figure out your own triggers. Figure out when you yell. Then think about what led up to this. What were you feeling? Were you feeling stressed, angry, scared? Then try to identify what created those feelings. Were you feeling stressed because you had a lot going on in your day? Or were you feeling depleted emotionally? Did you not get enough sleep the night before? Were you stressed about work and deadlines? Did you have an argument with your spouse? Were you frustrated because this is the 100th time you've corrected your child on this issue? Usually, you'll find the source of your yelling has little to do with the situation you're yelling at. It's usually something else going on underneath the surface. Figuring that out is key. And then that leads to step 2. Once you've figured and identified your triggers, next step is figuring out how to avoid them or at least manage them. Are you feeling stressed or exhausted? Engaging in some self-care, stress-reducing activities can help. As I'm saying this, I'm thinking to my morning and nighttime routine videos and how those are great ways to manage the stressors of life and parenting. I'll link those below. But are you starting to see how these things are all interconnected? Are you frustrated that you sound like a broken record with your child and having the same arguments over and over and over again? Well, maybe it's time to acknowledge that whatever approach you've been using hasn't been working. So it may be time to pivot. What did Einstein say? Something like insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So if that's you, figure out how to avoid or at least address your triggers so that they lose their control and power over you. Okay, step 3, pause. When you feel the yells brewing inside of you, stop. Take a minute, regain control of your emotions. Close your eyes, take some deep breaths. Recognize what is happening and acknowledge that yelling is not the most productive way to respond to the situation. Remember, you're the adult in this situation. It's your responsibility to control your emotions and take as long as you need. I feel like sometimes we think that we need to respond immediately to a situation. But oftentimes, this is probably the worst thing we can do because when we respond immediately, we tend to respond emotionally and not necessarily clearly or appropriately. When we take a minute, get control of our emotions, we can then respond more appropriately. Truth be told, when we yell, we're responding emotionally. And when we respond emotionally, there may be a small moment of satisfaction as we release that anger. But responding emotionally ultimately makes us feel bad or guilty or remorseful, especially when it's directed at someone we love. In our heart of hearts, a mature person recognizes this is not an appropriate way to respond, nor is this the behavior we want to model for our kids. When we identify our triggers, avoid or respond to them appropriately, and pause to regain control of emotions, we can respond with love, respect, and compassion, reinforcing the trusting relationship we want with our children and setting the foundation for meaningful change in their hearts. And we're also modeling the behavior our children need to show how to positively respond when they're experiencing big emotions. And as always, this may not be easy at first, especially if you're a recovering yeller, but give it time. Show yourself grace. You'll start to see the positive changes that come from responding from a place of love and clarity instead of an emotionally charged negative place. You'll be better for it, and so will your kiddos. You got this. Want more of this? Let's stay connected. You can subscribe here. Also, make sure to scan the QR code to get weekly-ish visits from me in your email with tools and resources to help you get your kiddos and your family out of survival mode and on their way to thriving. I promise I will only send things I believe will be ultra valuable to you. So I'm so thrilled we got connected, and I can't wait to see you again. Welcome to the Well-Equipped Family.